Hey guys, we are here in Ayzenberg, one of the premier creative services agencies based here in LA. We're about to walk into their offices, but what we'll be talking about today are a few things. One, what is the role of a creative services agency and what do they do? The role of brand marketing and how that's changing. The impact of data and how data is impacting how brand marketing works today, and a bunch of other very interesting things. So come with me and we'll find out more. Thank you so much for inviting us over to Ayzenberg. I thought we could first start by just talking about the agency. So Ayzenberg as a creative services agency, when I look at the website, there's like a lot of stuff. So maybe you guys could just help me understand, besides video trailers, what else do you guys do?
Well, I'm going to first answer the question on the website. So Eric Ayzenberg really is mantra right now in culture is around creating awesomeness. So in his mind, I think just getting right to the work, or being all about the work is what's there. So the site, for those who go there, from your comment, Joe, it's designed to just celebrate the work. So it isn't fundamentally crafted in a way that might be classically stacked with about and services and case studies. It's really just a way of celebrating the work and really the people behind it. As far as myself, I'm president here at Ayzenberg Group and really oversee operations, clients, and strategy departments, along with my partner, Stu.
Yep, I'm a Chief Communications Officer, and we're really trying to kind of forge the voice and the brand of Ayzenberg and A Network and promoting it both internally and externally.
Right, so could you talk about like more specifically some of the services? It seems like there's a lot. There's the trailers business, and then there's stuff with SoulMates. It seems like there's a technology piece. Could you break that down for us?
Yeah. Great question. At the same time, the challenge that we're all having, I think, in the marketplace and what we're dealing with of how we communicate is changing daily. So as an agency, every 2 to 3 years we reinvent ourselves. We have to sit together as a family, as a tribe, and think about what's going on in the culture that's impacting how people consume communications. Right. So if 20 years ago that was classic broadcast, and if 20 years ago was digital, and 5 years ago social, and today it's AR, VR, or mobile, or the idea of building an agency is building a consultancy.
Right.
So probably more now than ever before, we're a consultancy, though structured in a very unique way. So we're able to actually look at data and look at insights and then actually take action, empower them by the virtue of how we've been built over the last 25 years. I was talking to Stu the other day. I feel like the agency's just been around 2 or 3 years, quite frankly, and how we've evolved and how we change and how we think about the staffing to address the clients and the problems they're facing with, and then being able to actually act on it. So if I told you maybe 8 years ago we made 90 television commercials in a classic definition, and this year we'll make 3, perception might be that the agency is in a direction not in a positive manner. And the reality is, I think last year the shop alone did close to 20,000 pieces of content. Wow. So it's just a complete reinvention about what it means to actually create that one-on-one relationship with the consumer that hits them with something that's meaningful. And whether it's where it's authentic or engaging, it's really something that has to do with what's present in the conversation and what's present in the way the brand wants to be perceived with the consumer they want to have a relationship with. So it's a big deal, and it's a hard work.
Well, that's very true. We've been around for 25 years now, just over 25 years. One of the things that has always made Ayzenberg unique, in my opinion, really comes from the top, from Eric Ayzenberg, and that is having a vision of where the future is going, being a visionary. But it's only in the last couple of years, as Chris said, as we're reinventing ourselves, that we've had the capability, the technological capability, to do more than just see the future. We're trying to define the future. We're trying to help create the future.
Right.
And so we have a division within A Network, and Ayzenberg is now part of what we call A Network, A.Network. We have a division called SoulMates AI, who focuses on technology. And we're getting to the point where we can, with social media and with the technological tools and processes that we're developing, we can finally do the things that we've always wanted to do, and which is the element of frontline marketing, which we really promote here. And frontline marketing is about listening to people and finding out what their desires are before we make the creative that's going to move the needle for brands. Now, listening isn't solely limited to hearing. Okay, it's a term we use, social listening, but it's also about examining images, examining words, hearing what people have to say on social media, and then responding to that with creative, sharing that creative, and then letting the cycle, listen, create, and share, rotate again, and hearing what people have to say about the creative that we've shared with them, and then fine-tuning it. So by doing these sort of processes, it's taken us years of waiting for the technology to show up, and then also creating the technology to realize the vision that we've had for so long. And this is why it's such an exciting time right now.
Would you say that that's a key difference? Like when I talk to other creative services agencies, like one of the key things I took away was that you guys talk a lot about data and about technology and about, how the future is changing for brand marketing. Would you say that that's a key difference, or how would you view yourselves as competitively different?
I think you're close. The only take I take on that is because so many of executives, CMOs, marketers, whether it's gaming or non-gaming, are looking for accountability. So they're looking for an ability to understand that the time a consumer spends with their brand and the risk they develop in the creative that connects with them, is it going to deliver the results they're looking for? So it goes beyond just brand awareness, although a critical component, but we look at awareness, you look at consideration, you look at conversion. As a partner, can't speak for other agencies, but if we can't sit at the table and articulate through that entire funnel, so to speak, and I know, Joe, you've done some other sessions around these topics, understanding that relationship at all those points and being able to actually provide a solution or a service, I'm not being a good partner if we can't do that. And so, yes, investing in tools and data are critical, but really investing in people that believe in that. So we're a company that is measured by talent, I think, more than anything else, and having that talent excited and ready and amped every day to jump into it, we have to fuel them with a lot. And data right now today is that fuel that's helping them convert to a story that actually has a measurement component that gives us enough insights to do it again and again and again.
And Stu, one of the really interesting quotes from you that I read was the importance of people evolving or developing their own personal brand. Can you talk about what you mean by that, and like maybe some specific examples of how you would actually do that?
Absolutely. Joe, you are becoming a brand. Actually, you already are a brand at this point. You've created a YouTube channel. You've done amazing things with blogs and so forth. That's what people are doing now.
Yeah.
Social media, especially, has really allowed people to establish their own brands. Now, sometimes those brands are a little bit different than their own personal, personalities.
Okay.
Sometimes your online persona is a little bit different than your real life persona. Just like a real brand may present itself, a traditional brand may present itself a little bit differently. But what's happening is people are starting to think of themselves as brands. Whether it's their Instagram account or their Facebook account or their YouTube channel.
Right.
They're thinking of themselves in the way brands have traditionally thought of themselves. Now this presents to us a unique opportunity. We can start matching brands with brands, making alliances between brands, as opposed to selling something from one brand to a consumer.
Right.
And that the dynamic of that relationship changes the attitudes of both parties. The old marketing brands don't think of themselves anymore necessarily as just trying to sell their product. They're really looking to form long-term alliances with people who are now other brands that make sense. And some people don't make sense for them, just like some brands don't make sense for other people. So by really defining things differently and looking at things differently, we can start creating the tools and the processes that make this magic happen.
Yeah, one of the other sorts of changes that I'm starting to feel is beginning to develop in the industry from a brand marketing perspective is a quantification of, for example, ROI against brand marketing activities. Could you guys talk about, you guys are leveraging technology in a big way, you guys are using data, are you applying that to really try and quantify the impact or the ROI of brand marketing?
Yeah, you've been working on it. So Stu's been part of it too. So there's a couple ways to answer it. One is our media value index. So about 3 years we started because of that exact request. What's the value I'm getting out of the investment of the content we're making? Not everything can be reduced to just a sale.
Right.
So the earned media value index, and it's actually available on at our site. That's highly organized, to your point, Joe, earlier. That allows you to actually put a monetization value as if it was real-world media dollars. So the index tracks many of the social platforms, many of the different KPIs that marketers are looking for today, and provided a valuation that determines the performance of those data points. So ROI on a brand standpoint and on a consideration standpoint or on an awareness standpoint. We're also working deeply a lot with regression analysis. So influencer marketing is, a call that I think we're getting a lot from a lot of executives.
Yes.
Very much what you guys we just talked about in terms of brands and the
Right.
relationship of what a brand value is. So these influencers or content creators have a value in the marketplace. However, what is the conversion on that than say a post on Facebook or a ad placed within Amazon's app store or ecosystem? So looking at regression analysis of when an influencer's content hits, when an actual ad hits in an out-of-home or TV, when an actual ad is placed or your click action that's going through purchase, what was indirect and direct attribution modeling? So like many clients we work with, we have to have an army of data scientists, an entire stack of technologists, licensed tools, and the actual humans to actually sit there and kind of ride this thing like a bull and just try to get it figured out and get it harnessed. And every day, the algorithms that are used to help calculate and formulate this, it's real. And so the only element that ultimately is hindering any partners you're working with, and for us as well, is just access, right? What data do we have access to? And I don't really say big data. I know that was a big topic a couple years ago. So it's big data that I think in the last couple of years talk about big insights. People are just getting overwhelmed and then, all right, I have an insight. And today I think the dialogue is around, all right, could we take some action now?
Right.
Can we move on some of these? Can we test some of these?
Mm-hmm.
And then figure out how do we virtuously continue to move through it is really important on the data side.
Well, Chris brought up something that we're very excited about, and that is the EMVI, the Earned Media Value Index, which is one of the ways of figuring out the ROI of your investment
Right.
on online campaigns. And one great thing about this is, as we're trying to quantify it and we're trying to standardize it, it gets bigger and bigger, and we get different verticals. And all of a sudden we have a product, we have a technological tool that can be used by many people. So, as you're aware, a traditional advertising agency, the entire value of the agency walks out the doors at the end of the day.
Right.
The building may be worth something, but that's not what the agency's about.
Right.
We are creating value for this company by creating tools that can be licensed and franchised across great numbers of people, helping them understand these sort of ROI elements, but at the same time, really creating a combination advertising technological company whose value is much more than that of a typical advertising agency.
I think we've got, over 1,000. I think we have over 1,000 companies now downloading, utilizing, or accessing the EMVI.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, it's a great learning tool as well to see how brands are actually measuring and utilizing it. So it's been fun.
Hey guys, video seems to be playing an increasingly significant role in terms of reaching new audiences, and wanted to get your perspective in terms of, how that's being done in today's media.
Well, I think it all starts with video being such a great format for telling a story in. And really, when we get back to the beginning of human history, it's always been through telling stories that we share ideas, and we get most excited about those new ideas. And now we're really able to bring video into the realm of social media and everywhere else to create stories that connect with people and really share a brand story with another person.
Yeah, and Scott, I know, I know Ayzenberg primarily through the video trailers business, and at NBC Universal we've done a lot of work with you. Excellent work. I saw the Division 2 trailer, which was amazing, but I wanted to just ask you in terms of that specific business, can you walk me through what's typically involved when you come up with a new video trailer, like the process and kind of the people involved?
Absolutely, it's not all that different from the process of making a more traditional film, to be honest. So you start off with your writer, so you have a team of creatives, a creative director, a writer, and you start developing the concepts. And much as Stu was talking about, really you're focusing on classic themes, even though it's always in the setting of the world of the game.
Right.
But typically you're going on sort of this hero's journey, they're up against, they're out to save the world, right? Or whatever it might be. And so I think great stories, no matter what medium they're in, they have the same elements to them, really, right? But what's different with a video game, you start out, you write a script, you describe the VO or the dialogue that's going to be in that, right? So you
Right.
write all that out, you describe the sort of scene, so you get the pacing with your first act to set things up, and your second act really propelling the story forward, and then of course the climax and the resolution in your third act. The main difference is really that instead of going out into the world or into the back lot at Universal to
Right.
shoot,
Yeah.
we are living inside the world of the video game in that build, right? And that becomes sort of our soundstage.
Right.
And we take that camera and we go in there and we shoot our own scenes and we kind of make a movie within the world of the game.
Right.
So instead of having a director and a DP, we have a gameplay capture director who sort of operates in that role.
Right.
And then at that point, you start working very closely back and forth with the editor, the gameplay capture director, and the creative director. You're constantly shooting a scene, the editor's putting it together.
Yeah.
That worked, that didn't work, we need to shoot a reverse of that, this needs to be wider, we need an extra ending to this, and you're constantly changing the shots until you get everything to work out correctly. It's really a collaborative process, just like filmmaking is.
Right. One of the things that we've noticed from a marketing perspective when we're doing like user acquisition is when we actually use a very high quality, trailer for a game, that it performs significantly better in terms of being for us to be able to acquire customers to a game, for example. So if you were to try and distinguish or characterize what makes a really strong trailer from a trailer that's not going to work as well, so would you say it is that storytelling aspect of it, or is there what are the other elements that make a really strong trailer as effective as possible?
I think in gaming the quality is always there. Gamers want the latest, technological bells and whistles that, when we went from SD to HD or when you're going to HDR, there's always some next sort of objective out there in the world of technological fidelity of the image, right? So gamers always care a little bit about that. So yeah, sometimes the higher quality stuff attracts gamers, but I think at the end of the day, it's that emotional connection, that the story that gets your heart pounding,
Right.
and that it builds that you feel that excitement, you
Right.
feel it in your bones, and that's when I know I've made a great trailer. When you
Got
at
it.
the end of it, you're just like woo,
Right.
and that's when you know you
So
connected.
tell a story and evokes some kind of emotion from the audience.
Absolutely.
Great.
But it also invites you into that world. It immerses you in that world. And
Right.
for those few seconds when you're there,
Yeah.
you're really there and you're living it. Like our tagline for our agency is creating and sharing brand stories.
Right.
And we really believe that we're not the only ones doing it, of course, but that as an industry, we have sort of, raised expectations on the part of gamers and on the part of viewers
Right.
to be entertained through the marketing. And at this point, we always have to, just see, as discussing, what's the next level? Where can we take this to the next level, to where we have that immersion, that storytelling, and at the end of the day, it's an entertainment in itself, just like the game itself will be an entertainment.
Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Guys, one of the most interesting parts of talking to people is finding out sort of the origin story, right? In terms of how did a company get started, what was the initial sort of scene and the circumstances. Could you set the stage for me? Like, how did this company get together? Who were the initial founders? And then when did you guys join Ayzenberg?
Right, well,
Good luck with that.
25 and a half years ago, we celebrated our quarter century last year. 25 years ago, Eric Ayzenberg was already just a few feet from here, from where we're standing now,
All right.
in the next building over. And he had two partners at the time in an agency called Paragon.
Okay.
And when they dissolved that agency, one of the partners took the name Paragon, went to the west side. Another one of the partners went back to Salt Lake City, and Eric stayed here in the building, but changed the name to Ayzenberg Group.
Okay.
And at that point, Ayzenberg Group was Eric Ayzenberg.
Okay.
And no one else.
Yeah.
So he had visions of having a group, but at that point it was just him. He quickly assembled a small group of people around him, about 4 people, and they started just as a scrappy small agency, really focused on it as a design shop.
Okay.
So that was 1993. Around the year 2000, he started bringing in people that could really create a real ad agency, really take it from a design shop to an ad agency. I came here from the big agencies, from Gray and Lois. Gary Goodman, one of our partners, came here from DreamWorks. So I brought ad agency experience and copywriting and creative direction skill. Gary brought all kinds of filmmaking and storytelling.
Nice.
And soon we had, Chris arrived and Vincent arrived, bringing in media, bringing in strategy and business development, and all the components that we needed from an agency.
Right.
So it was really around the year 2000, around 7 years after Eric started it, that things really started to grow and a partnership started to form.
Got it.
But when Chris and I came here, we still only had less than 20 people.
Wow.
So we still had a long way to go. We are now at over 250 people in the network, just here in our Pasadena headquarters. So the growth has been organic, but at the same time, it's been dramatic.
And can you talk to me about, like, over this 25-year span, there must have been some tough moments. So to the extent that you can you talk about some of those tough moments, and then also talk about what do you think were the keys to success in terms of being where you guys are now as one of the premier agencies?
I know a little about that. So it's a great question. So the agency that Stu described in a kind of a core group, we constantly take time and a moment to pause and realize what's going on in the marketplace.
Right.
So probably for the impact coming out of the bubble of the IPOs and the dot-coms
Right.
in 2000s,
Yeah.
when I joined the agency and trying to establish something that I think a group had a vision around how to deal with marketing present day at that time. And we've been growing 10% year over year ever since, actually 40%, Joe, in the last 2
Wow.
years.
Wow.
So when you look at 2008, you would say, man, that would have been a seismic moment where an agency shift would have happened. It happened to a lot of agencies.
Yeah.
And why were you continuing to grow or those are continuing to decline or even potentially shut down? So it came to actually our ability to just take a real humble approach of looking every day and every quarter and every year at the businesses and looking at the marketplace, what we need and what we need to do to change, to evolve on it. I tell you right now, and Stu's the same, I'm not doing the same thing I did when I joined here, and I didn't do the same thing I'm doing 2 years ago. And it has nothing more than probably something that is the greatest difficulty to do in management, which is to let go.
Right.
So we're spending a lot of time now listening in a way that might sound kind of fluffy and airy, but genuinely it's about empowering those that think they can do more, but they're just not allowed to because of structure or org chart or things that come into the marketplace that for a small company like ours, we have little time to pay attention to because you're just trying to get through the next day.
Right.
So our success and our journey, although has continued to grow, we're always trying to improve and always trying to move there. It's not easy, but it comes in with a very kind of workmanship mentality, getting it in, where you get your hours in and getting your work done. I haven't figured out how to do it any way smarter, quite frankly.
Well, part of the reason I think we were able to weather some of the big changes in the economy, for instance, 2008,
Right.
I mean, gaming helped. The fact that people, when times got tough, they wanted to buy a game and go home and not go on a vacation.
Right.
They're going to take a vacation by
Yeah.
like playing 50 hours of gameplay. So that helped. But in the bigger picture, what was really helping us is that the spirit of this company is entrepreneurial, is an entrepreneurial spirit.
Right.
And really, Eric Ayzenberg is more than anything else an entrepreneur. So when the dot-bomb thing happened, Eric had been an incubator. He'd actually been creating websites, creating companies. He saw the writing on the wall, and he got out at the right time. And as an entrepreneur, he knew where to shift. He knew where the winds were blowing. Same as we were just talking about recently, about creating a network in which we can sort of define the future through technology and through marketing.
Right.
So it's this entrepreneurial outlook, I think, that really helps us weather the tough storms.
We're here with Chris and Ashley. Could you first just introduce yourselves and talk about your role here at Ayzenberg?
Yeah, I'm Ashley Owen. I'm the strategy director
Okay.
here at Ayzenberg, and specifically under the marketing science umbrella. So if you split those two up into two separate pieces, I'm the marketing side of the marketing science umbrella.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Chris Strasser, VP of Marketing Science. Basically what I do is I handle a lot of the go-to-market strategy for our marketing science, so a lot of the public face of how we tell that story and how we explain it to people either in pitches or new business development. We really view it as this confluence kind of several different disciplines, but especially that strategist and brand planner along with the analyst and somebody who's bringing a lot of that hardcore kind of data analysis to the equation with that human element of the planner and strategist, and we try to make them invaluable to each other so that they understand they actually need each other a lot more than they don't. And then today's marketing is going to be really hard to get what we need to get done for our clients done without that kind of dynamic.
So just so I understand a little bit
Yeah.
better, so when we talk about marketing science, we're basically talking about how do you marry data and data science with traditional brand marketing. Is that fair to say?
I
or-
would say that. So the line I like to use is that it's the application of science and technology to the art of storytelling.
Okay.
There's a lot there
Yeah.
in that statement.
Okay.
But if you unpack it a little bit, science, especially the, social science, the sciences that would be applicable to marketing in general have always been with us.
Right.
Data science has now evolved to a place where it's producing a lot of value for marketers.
Right.
And on the other side of that, the art of storytelling, that's a real thing. That's a real human kind of the crafting of that connection.
Right.
So that requires that kind of human cognition and that element to find that net new truth
Yeah.
that you really need to have to make compelling stories out in the market. So for us, it isn't a new term, but it's new enough for us to be able to apply it the way we need to, and kind of in the way that's unique to Ayzenberg.
And can you talk about, maybe Ashley?
Yeah.
So under marketing science, could you talk about some of the products or like a specific application of marketing science to a specific, campaign of some kind?
Yeah. So I think kind of piggybacking off of what Chris was just mentioning, if you look at traditional brand marketing and maybe brand strategy, the tools that a strategist might use to better understand the audience were things like surveys and focus groups and getting out on the street and meeting people and doing interviews. We still have all of those tools, but with the way that data and technology has progressed, we now have an entire suite of opportunities to be able to kind of learn about our audience and the way that they're kind of interacting in the world. So I think some of those tools here are things like SoulMates and kind of our proprietary technology as well. Like we've got kind of a variety of pieces, so bringing in social data as well as kind of those traditional pieces. So on a day-to-day basis, we're doing that for clients here like Microsoft and Oculus, City of Hope. We're kind of doing it on the ground all the time.
So could you talk, so what does SoulMates do exactly?
Yeah, you can take that one.
So SoulMates is a part of our, kind of proprietary tech platform that is the enablement piece to a lot of the marketing science that we do.
Okay.
But it's mainly based on artificial intelligence and machine learning of social data. So what we like to call social speech or consumer declared data, however you want to put it, that is the most transparent the consumer is going to be. And so we haven't really had the technical capability until very recently to analyze the masses of data that come from especially social networks in a way that was actually beneficial. And now that machine learning has gotten to the place that it has, and that you can really build a platform in the cloud with AWS or wherever you need to, and those costs are reduced, this all now becomes very possible. And we can actually make sense of what used to be the mess of that social landscape, so that brands start to understand what is the share of mind, what is the share of voice, what is it, what are people actually saying about you? Are you inserting yourself into that narrative whatsoever? What is that general kind of sentiment? Do people feel like you're delivering on your brand promise, or is there a disconnect between how you think you're performing and how you're being perceived? And so SoulMates was a big investment that Ayzenberg made that actually really is one of a very unique, it's one of the most unique attributes to the agency, because I've spent the last 15 years at some of the biggest agencies in the world doing solution architecture and building tech platforms. Very few of those agencies were willing to make the investment that Ayzenberg did.
Right.
Very few of those agencies were willing to go and say, no, we're going to lean into this, and we're going to lean into it really hard, and we're going to go social first, or social forward. We think there's a treasure trove of data there in that social landscape that's there for marketers to actually execute much more effectively on. So that's part of our platform. That's more of the build part. There are other parts of it that are more buy, and when you get those pieces all put together, you have a really compelling competitive advantage for us, because not only we're focused on the consumer declared data, but we've made the investments that you need to actually create action based on that data that you're getting.
So one of the traditional or historical knocks on brand marketing has been just how hard it is to quantify ROI or quantify the impact of brand marketing. So with marketing science, with SoulMates, and the data that you guys are ingesting and analyzing, is it possible now to, quantify better whether it's social influencer marketing or other types of brand marketing?
So it is much more effective than it used to be.
Okay.
I would say, given my experience, what we used to do was we'd, on one end of a platform, turn on a fire hose, what they used to call big data,
Yeah.
which really meant nothing and everything all at once. Build a platform in the middle, and then on the other side, you got basically what was a leaky faucet. So you had all this stuff coming in, but the output of the system was this drip, drip. And it wasn't very effective. And we've gotten to a point now where that platform that's sitting in the middle there is much more evolved. And that allows us to produce the kind of metrics on the points you're mentioning that can help a lot of the stakeholders on the other side of the table, vouch for a lot of the investments they're making in their marketing efforts and tactics. Most of them are looking for that kind of, what is the ROI? What can we expect? What's going to happen in 6 weeks, 8 weeks? What's the percentage of lift in sales we can expect? Those are all things we can do now with 99 point something, levels of certainty. That wasn't even 2 or 3 years ago widely available to us, just in general. But I think that over the last 2 to 3 years, there's been such an advancement in the technology and the analytics tools that are available, and such a reduction in the cost in order to make that happen, that now you've got platforms that can be built at scale that are highly effective.
And I think it's even just about having people in the building who specialize in data science, for example. Not a ton of traditional advertising agencies will prioritize that kind of skill set, because as much as the technology is part of it, it's about having kind of that human intelligence who can distill it, make sense of it, work with different data sources, and kind of make sense of all of it so it can be applied to something like ROI.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about that in terms of the people. So when we're talking about the types of people that are employed here at Ayzenberg, and as a premier creative services agency, and I love the building you guys are working in, but if somebody wanted to crack into the industry in a company like Ayzenberg, like what are the kinds of people you guys are looking for? What kinds of skills do they need?
I can give you my 3 characteristics that I look for.
All
They're
right.
not so much skills, but
All right.
it's 3 C's, and everyone has to have them.
Okay.
1 is curiosity. I want you to come in asking questions, learning, listening, figuring out what you can impact and do differently. This is kind of a scrappy roll up your sleeve sort of place. So you've got to come in curious and hungry. The second C is creative. We're surrounded by art. We make things. You have to be kind of compelled to make things to come here. And then the last one is collaborative. I have never been at an agency more collaborative than this place. I'm coming again from somewhat of a traditional background where a brief was crafted and then handed off to creatives to create. This is not how we work. We are really kind of hands-on all the way throughout the process. So those are kind of my high-level characteristics across the board. I think skills can be taught and built, but those are important.
Right.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I think one term I like to use is kind of a both brain thinker. And obviously, we're going to land on certain spots, and you're going to have skill sets that lend themselves, more to one side or the other. But there is that idea that you have to be able to go into it thinking not just totally subjectively and not just totally objectively. There's got to be a mix there, and you got to be able to bounce back and forth, or at least be in rooms where that's happening, in order for us to effectively do what we say we can do when we go out and
For
talk to people.
someone who's trying to build a knowledge base and experience to come work at a company like Ayzenberg, what advice would you give them before applying to this agency?
I would say one of the things to definitely focus on is try to be a little out in front of where you see the trends. I think that's a really interesting part of Ayzenberg, and something that definitely distinguishes it from the other agencies that I'm more familiar with, is that there's this constant kind of soul searching about what is Ayzenberg, what do we really want to lean into, and if we find something, we're really going to believe in it, even if it's not like the biggest money grab out in the marketplace or something like that. We're not necessarily chasing that. I think you have to be able to come in here and adopt that kind of DNA in order to be successful, looking a little bit past the horizon, because that's what a lot of the work is about.
Yeah, I would say start making things.
Okay.
Whatever you know how to make, whether it's spreadsheets or content or, photos, or if you write, start making things. Because I think
Right.
a place like this wants you to come in and show what you can do, and then
Right.
let us sort of build upon the things that you want to be better at.
Right,
So
to
that's-
expose your work and build your personal brand, as Stu would say.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would say.
Great. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Hey Stu, I gotta say this is one of the most beautiful buildings that I've ever visited, and such a great work environment. Could you talk about the way the architecture in the building integrates with the working environment here?
Absolutely. That's you picked up on something that's very important to our company, and that is creating an environment that fosters creativity.
Right.
So it's not just the architecture. We have an amazing architecture, built by Rick Corsini of Corsini and Stark Architects. But it's also the way that we have filled that architecture, and
Right.
it's the furniture. Going with very modern furniture. It's the art on the walls.
Yes.
Some of this art is from very well-known local artists, and we've actually created a gallery called Space Gallery that we have exhibits every 3 months or so. On the weekends, on Saturdays and Sundays, the public is invited to come in and
Wow.
actually experience the art, buy it maybe.
Right.
But it's all a nonprofit venture to help some local charities, but also to help the local artists. But the real bottom line is that we feel that by creating an environment that fosters creativity, it really helps all people in the agency, not just the so-called creatives that are making the art direction or the copywriting, but everybody in the agency is inspired to be more creative in whatever discipline that they're doing.
Right. Great. Thank you very much, Stu.